let's just first maybe just Sati.
Sati.
Yeah.
What is Sati? What is
What is Sati?
so-called mindfulness?
What is Sati and why it's better to not translate it as mindfulness?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you're saying, it's better to translate it, well, this is the option, as recollection.
Yes,
Sati as
recollectedness, I suppose. Recollectedness.
Because it's about remembering something.
Yeah.
A specific thing.
Yeah.
Remembering is not doing.
So what is the
Well,
what is the nature then? So given that Sati, even in the suttas, it's used as memory.
Yeah.
One
who remembers things.
One who remembers things. Yeah. So what is the nature of recollecting? What is a necessary condition for you to recollect something?
a memory or an experience. That's really what is a necessary condition.
Yeah. So in order for you to recollect something,
A knowledge.
so you need to know what you're recollecting. Can you recollect something you never ever experienced or came across or thought of? Can you recollect such things?
No.
Exactly. So it's the necessary condition for Sati is at least a degree of some discernment of something, because there is nothing to be recollected. How can recollection take place? Impossible. So the effort of Sati is the effort of recollecting either what you discerned or recollecting that which you basically learned, recollecting what you learned that discernment is. So in other words, even if somebody who doesn't necessarily have the values of a Sotapanna or somebody in training to recollect them, the nature of Sati is the nature of recollecting. So you recollect the purpose of your practice. You recollect that you are responsible for your actions, things that Puthujjana can know. That's what your mindfulness is. Not like I recollect it and now I forget about it. If I ask you, can you bring back to your mind, basically, recollect all the times, or rather recollect how you felt all the times that you suffered in your life on account of anything. Doesn't matter what specifically, just recollect the nature of suffering. And now go about your day with that recollection in your mind. And that's nothing other than telling you how to go about your day being mindful of your feelings.
And does that recollection have to be in front of you?
Not just that it doesn't have to be, it cannot be in front of you. Because you're recollecting something that's not there. Even if, like, would you be recollecting now that you are, I don't know, clasping your hands together? Oh, I'm recollecting this. No, recollection is always on the level of the context of now.
Yes.
So if you're doing your recollection now, means you're not seeing the context. The context being the general nature of things that you're supposed to discern. So in this particular instance, context being your body posture and having hands and having life and not being dead and all these other things you can use to be mindful of. So being mindful of something doesn't mean attending and focusing on that thing. It means discerning the peripheral context in regard to that thing.
Remembering the context.
Remembering. You have to say remembering the context because that implies you can remember something else. No, you can't. That's all you can remember. That's all you can recollect is something that is to a degree known, as in experienced, discerned, maybe not fully understood, but again, you know you're responsible for your actions. It's when you forget that, basically think that you always are responsible for your actions, that's when you start acting irresponsibly. Would you be acting irresponsibly with the thought in your mind resulting from directly like recollecting the weight of responsibility that you know you have? You wouldn't. You couldn't. Or would you be acting sensually towards sense desire, having established your mind properly, recollected the sign of repulsiveness, the inherent repulsiveness in everything beautiful, the inherent impermanence, the inherent danger? Those are the thoughts you recollect, but those thoughts are the context of your present situation. So for as long as you think you can be doing mindfulness in the present moment, means you are not mindful because you are doing it. You're not recollecting it, you're trying to basically perform it. And mindfulness and discernment is not on the level of performing. That's why it cannot be a method, it cannot be a technique, it cannot be a doing. And that's why it can free you from doing. If there is a prescribed set of, you do this, you do this, you do this, and you're free from doing, that's a contradiction in terms. Yeah, do good on account of doing bad, so stop doing bad, but do good, but it's still a form of doing. You're still bound by nature of action. But discerning the context, discerning the nature of it, that's where the freedom is. That's why you can't have too much of Sati, and that's why Sati results in discernment, in full understanding of nature of things. And that's why also Sati, recollectedness, results in Samadhi, which is composure. You are composed right here, right now, as a result of my fundamental, imperturbable, recollected context that is still enduring, unchanged. That's like all the things you can be mindful of. Your moods, the context, your feelings, the context of your actions.
Or death.
Death, the context, yeah.
So it's not being mindful of any old thing, it's like you need to discern what it is. If you're actually practicing recollectedness for the sake of freedom from suffering, you need to know what you're supposed to recollect, what you're supposed to bring back into your mind to endure as a context. And essentially a Patuja won't see that.
He cannot know that because he doesn't see the Dhamma.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know the way out of suffering. How can he recollect the way out of suffering? Having not found the way out of suffering, he cannot recollect it. That's why the mundane right view for Putujana is something he needs to strive for. There is responsibility, there is a result of your actions, there is given, there are things that I don't understand, and so on and so forth. Basically taking it into account that you don't know and you acknowledge that. And that's again, you recollect that context. So, see, if your mind is established upon the context of, I don't know the way out of suffering, and that remains, you don't neglect that recollection. When it sort of lapses, you bring back the recollection. You re-clarify it, you re-discern it, so to speak. Would you then be able to take, leave, pick or choose or dismiss various instructions or the suttas you come across? You wouldn't. Because you know that you don't know, which means you know that you don't have a reference point for right is right, wrong is wrong. So you would take everything with a pinch of salt, but at the same time you wouldn't look for fault into things either. So you would be careful and maintain the context of one who doesn't know, who's trying to figure it out. Or also, if you are maintaining the context of the one who doesn't know, would you then be able to forget about the fact that you don't know that you're subjected to suffering and the whole thing? No, you wouldn't. It would become a pressing task for you to do. But when you don't necessarily dwell on the context that you don't know, you sort of drift, like, you know, if somebody would like ask you, put you on the spot, you'll say, yes, I don't know. But if nobody asks you, if you don't ask yourself that question, if you don't bring that recollection to your mind, you will drift away on account of things that you do that make you feel better, that make you be a nicer person and so on. And you'll end up being a Putujana who thinks he knows what practice of Dhamma is. And that's like the greatest obstruction you create for yourself. Because then you won't look for what the right Dhamma is. And the right Dhamma begins when you know the way out of suffering. Not before that. Yeah, maybe you're doing it rightly, maybe you're doing it wrongly. The context is, I still don't know, which means I mustn't stop trying to find the right thing until I know for sure. And that will come as that kind of sense of urgency would come as a direct result of your correct or recollectedness of the correct things. But even, as I said, even if you don't necessarily have any Dhamma instruction, Sati, mindfulness, is recollectedness.
like as the Arunlu gave the example, like that. Oh, be mindful when you go into that kuti, because there is a slippery gutter there. So now you go into the kuti and you're opening the door carefully, and you're carefully putting your foot down so you don't slip. And then the second step, carefully. That's not what mindfulness is. That's not what sati is. All of those things you're doing carefully are results of your sati, which is awareness of the context of danger. So that's the context of entering the kuti's potential injury. Because of that, you are stepping in slowly. But most people, probably due to the whole kind of notion of, meditative techniques and whatnot, associate mindfulness with that kind of close attention, like staring at my feelings, the soles of my foot. I'm mindful. No. You wouldn't even do that unless somebody pointed out the possible danger of slipping. And that's where the mindfulness is, in discerning the context of your present intentions that are leading you towards present actions. Not towards like cancelling everything. Like don't think about the context, don't think about the fear, don't think about the danger, just touching, moving, opening, sitting, stepping, whatever else. That's like completely the opposite of the context. And ironically, that's also done on account of the context of ignoring. You value ignoring the context as a practice of Dhamma. So that's why you want to commit and overly absorb into things. Hopefully that's how you kind of pull yourself away from all the thoughts and feelings and moods that bother you. I mean, how many times you heard from, the teachers, oh, just stop thinking.
Or just place your awareness on the breath.
Which is, again, just focus on breathing, or do the mantra Buddha in your head. Just don't think. Like, how can you even understand that sentence without thinking it? So here you are, thinking that you shouldn't be thinking. And then adhering to your thinking that things that doesn't think as the way of out of thinking. And that's why it always results in just frustration, basically. And if people who are engaging in this kind of practice say, no, I'm not frustrated, well, then you could also ask yourself, do you get upset when somebody says that your practice is wrong? Do you get defensive? Because if that sort of starts you off in a defensive direction, means, oh, so you're adhering to something blindly. Why are you being affected by coming across a view that says, no, that's wrong? You don't need to take it personally. And if you're doing it right, you will be unable to take it personally. So all these little pointers, basically, but they're not seen because the whole practice is practice of looking away from the context, ironically, at the pretext of mindfulness, which is basically recollectedness of the context. And you can see if the context is clearly discerned, and it's enduring there presently now, you're responsible for your actions. You will be acting, whatever you now choose to do within that context, you will be acting in full awareness. Because the context is clear and imperturbable. Can you then act in lack of awareness and do something irresponsible while the context of responsibility is there enduring and you're feeling it? You can't, impossible. Hence Sati Sampajana, mindfulness, recollectedness and awareness. So you can't do mindfulness. That's the point. If you're doing it, means that's not mindfulness. Your doing is the result of recollectedness or lack of it. That's why the right view comes first, even for the right mindfulness. It doesn't say Sati comes first and then Samadhi comes first, second. No. It's the right view that then, now you know what you're supposed to recollect. And now your recollectedness will be Sati. Or do a right technique that will then result in the right view. Impossible. So having developed right view, having discerned the right view, your recollectedness will be right. Having discerned the right view, having right recollectedness enduring, your composure will be right. Samadhi.
So having recognized the context, and having remembering the context.
Yeah.
And
like No, and see, like remembering the context, people might think, so I just have to keep telling to myself what the context is. That's not remembering the context. That's you just basically trying to do it again. So remembering the context means recollect. Are you responsible for your actions? Or like what we always do. What is your present enduring mood right now? Positive, negative, neutral. See, you recollect what's already there. You're not creating the mood by giving me the answer. You just, the question directed you in the direction of the context, which is the present enduring pleasant mood. Okay. Now you don't have to keep saying I'm in a good mood. That will distract you from present enduring mood. So now you just have to remain mindful of it peripherally. That's the whole point. That's what mindfulness is. That peripheral discernment. Discernment of the container, of the foundation.
Would it be like if you said remembering or recollecting it? It's not so much as something that you do, but not engaging in anything that contradicts it.
Protecting what you recollected.
Yeah.
That's what Buddha would say. That
Yeah.
everybody mischants. That you guard your mind, like the mother guards her own child. And with that state of mind, you will cherish all living beings. But I mean, this is like unrelated. But the funny thing is, the way the chanting is done and translated, it sounds as if you will basically, like the mother guards her own child, you cherish all living beings. But the point is to recollect the mind correctly, protect the mind, as in protect the wholesome states.
Yeah. Because if
make sure there is no arising of unwholesome and no cessation of wholesome. And
because if you engage in something, if you choose to engage in something unwholesome, then you're basically preventing yourself from recollecting.
So you are practicing mindfulness by knowing what you're supposed to recollect, which is already a form of recollecting it, and then protecting that which is enduring through that recollection, which is your state of mind.
You're recollecting.
Yeah, you recollected it. So what do I do now? Let it endure without distracting yourself from it. So and that's what we spoke in the previous talk. You can't lose your recollectedness accidentally. You only lose it when you choose to basically act out of desire, aversion, or desire for distraction. So through your actions, you basically erode the context that you now need to re-recollect. But you can still do it. You re-recollect it, then your actions are seen as discrepant to the context that now you value, like a mother values her only child. And then you will abstain from the actions, and it won't require effort and like, I must say no, because you value the context and these actions are incompatible with the context. The only reason you can then engage with these actions is if you stop recollecting, or lose what you recollected of that context. And you will lose it when you carelessly take it for granted, start looking away from it, start distracting. Oh, this is fine, this won't take me away from my recollectedness. Next thing you know, you lost what you recollected, so you need to redo it.
But one who has recognized that what needs to be recollected,
then you just maintain that recollection in being, which is the definition of bhavana. Maintaining it, like protect it while it's enduring there on its own, because that's the context you discern. And as a result of you protecting the context now that's being there enduring as your state of mind, everything incompatible to that context is being sort of, burnt away.
So it's like you've understood something, and now you're not doing anything that's going to confuse that.
It's going to cover it up, distract you from it. Yeah. Mindfulness of breathing.
Recollection of breathing.
Recollectedness of breathing.
Yeah.
Recollectedness of breathing.
So
well, that's as we already clarified in a number of talks, on peripheral awareness. We've done the whole talk of mindfulness of breath, basically discernment of the context that endures while you're doing this, while you're doing that, and so on. Well, now in the light of the recent talk of recollectedness being the word for Sati, you read the sutta in itself, Anapanasati Sutta, and it already states first that the audience of the Anapanasati Sutta were at least Sotapannas, which means they were all of the right view. So now they have the right mindfulness. And then there are loads of ways of right mindfulness, but in this particular sutta, the way of the recollectedness is the recollectedness of breathing. And that's how the actual instruction starts. Breathing in long, as in there is breathing in long, he knows he's breathing in long. So it's not like, I am breathing in long and I know I'm breathing in long. No, breathing in long, while breathing in long, he knows there is a breathing in long. So you recollect the most obvious, the most apparent, the most neutral knowledge of what's already there. Can you recollect the breath if the breath is not there? Impossible. And that's important order here to maintain, because when people would even read that sutta, which is very clear, but yeah, I'm sure people say, well, it's very clear that's an instruction, and people will take it to be an instruction. But he doesn't. He said he knows. He doesn't say he does the breath like this. He said while breathing like this, he knows that's how he's breathing. He knows he's breathing long. He knows. So can you do the knowledge? Oh, do the knowledge. Do the knowledge for me. Do the method of knowledge.
Yeah.
No, you can only know what's there. You can only know. That's why knowledge results from correct recollectedness. You get to know what you keep recollecting. And the only reason, by the way, you can then practice whatever, focusing on your nostrils or other breath, is because of the context of the breathing is there, that obviously now you're not mindful of. You lost the recollection of it. Because you don't need to be thinking of your nostrils in order to know that you are breathing. All you need to do is don't distract yourself from your knowledge that you are already breathing.
So you say you can see how you're breathing now. Doesn't matter. You don't have to start your knowledge by the first thing that you.
This is how I'm supposed to be breathing.
He knows the long breath. Okay,
yeah.
So now I've got
the short breath
at
the moment.
So I have to wait for the long
breath.
Then
no, you've got to do the long breathing first, and then.
So you start the mindfulness of breathing by asking yourself, "Am I breathing right now?" The answer is yes. So what is the breathing while I'm breathing? Well, breathing is in, breathing is out. Breathing is bodily in of air, bodily out of air. That's the breathing, and I know I'm breathing because breathing is there while I'm thinking of it. That's the beginning of mindfulness of breath.
Yeah.
When you get used to that context, then you can see, now there is this kind of breathing in and this kind of breathing out that you know, not that you do.
It's like knowing the mind. With respect to the same.
Yeah, of course. Knowing the context, exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, basically, there's something there that you're kind of you can only know something.
That it's on its own.
Exactly, yeah. You only say and you know it.
That you either recollect
it has to be there.
Exactly, and that's what I meant. I don't actually know if I finished the sentence, but yeah, good point. That's why I said it's important order, because if you don't discern that, or if you forget that, you will keep trying to repossess your breathing, to regain the control of your breathing, which is completely the opposite of recognizing it being there on its own, independent of you. So you're taking away that which you can't take away, which is the independence of the form, of the body, of the feelings, and trying to recontrol. And again, that's why most people's meditation is meditation with sensuality, which is meditation with control, with desire, with like this, with like that.
Just recognizing what the breath is, that context.
Recognizing what breath currently is enduring on its own. Recognizing breath peripherally.
I think it's the verb actually. So I would tend to avoid saying recollection of the breath because it's something that you're doing. It's something it's an intention. It's like so it's actually the verb breathing in. So it's recollecting breathing in, rather than, just for me, the breath. When I say recollection of the breath, or mindfulness of the breath,
Mm.
people think, oh well, it's this
Being present while
This
I'm doing this.
thing that I focus on.
Yeah, yeah. Focus on this
Yeah.
while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
No, it's that's what I mean. Like breathing in, breathing out is there. They're bound with the body. They're bodily. They're being done
Mm.
by the body.
Mm.
So you are discerning that. So breathing in long, he knows breathing in is long. Not like I am breathing in. Later on, and that's what you got your phone out.
That's why I've got this.
You want to look at the Pali as well.
Yeah, so the first few are breathing in long. I am he knows I am breathing in long.
Yeah. So he knows I am breathing in long. Breathing in long, he knows I'm breathing in long.
Breathing in short. Breathing out long. He knows I'm breathing out long, and then short. And then it moves to he trains.
So that's what you could say, like having breathing in short, enduring.
Yeah.
He knows I am breathing in short.
Yeah.
Having breathing out long, enduring. He knows I am breathing out long.
There's this thing there.
Because of that, I am breathing in like this,
Yeah.
or I am breathing like that. Not because I am breathing like this or that.
Yeah.
I is secondary to it. In other words, I is basically just an expression, as in I know that because of this breath, this is the breath here.
There's something there, and I know it's there.
And the body is there.
Well, that's why Anapanasati, the sutta doesn't say it results in jhanas and ecstatic experiences. It results in fulfillment of the four foundations of mindfulness. Why?
Foundations of
Because the four foundations of recollectedness, the four bases of recollectedness: recollectedness of the body, recollectedness of the present enduring feeling on account of the body, recollectedness of the mind, of the moods, recollectedness of the images.
But yeah, so it then after those first four, it's more about what one should do or what one trains, how
Intends
one
to
trains.
do.
Yeah, what one intends to do.
Mm.
That's right. So it's so he trains. I will breathe in as one who experiences the whole body.
So the emphasis is on experiencing the whole body. That's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
What
While
else?
breathing.
Yeah, while breathing, because
Yeah.
now that your mind is established upon knowing the breathing that's enduring there, breathing in like this, breathing in like that,
Yeah.
whichever way the breathing in is occurring, he knows that.
Yeah.
While it's occurring, he's not doing of the breathing. So now that he knows that there is breathing in long, and while breathing in long or breathing in short, he knows now, he becomes familiar with the knowledge. In other words, the context of present knowledge of present enduring breathing is there. Then he makes the effort to discern further things within that container now of established recollectedness.
And so it's not that
Because you can't just stay with breathing and not think about anything specific. But the reason why the Buddha gave the sutta is for those who are still not arahants to become arahants.
Yeah.
So you need to push a bit.
Yeah.
But not push in terms of start doing the breathing, which is undoable, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's independent of you, your body. But more like, while you are now established with that right container, free from lust, free from aversion, free from distraction, while you're breathing in like this, bring these phenomena to your mind.
And
Bring these images of the body as a whole, calming down,
experiencing the
joy.
body as a whole, calming the body.
Yeah. All the other things that would fortify further this passion, removal of lust and removal of ignorance.
Can I just say as well, it's not so much that the experiencing the body is then something that, so if the breathing is peripheral, if the knowledge of the breathing is peripheral, then it's not so much that the experiencing the whole body is then something that you're staring at
No,
as
that's
well.
another discernment.
Exactly, that's within.
Because that's what it said, the body is
periphery.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the body.
Yeah.
While you're breathing, that is what the body is
Yeah,
for
yeah.
you.
Same place.
Exactly, it's the same place. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the sutta
but
says.
refined more. You're discerning more of the background.
Discern more of relevant background
Yeah.
for the freedom from suffering.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, like push, but not push by creating or doing something now on top of this. Same principle. you can only discern, recollect that which is there on its own. You're not creating it through your recollection of it, as the word recollection means regathering of what's there on its own. So even breathing in like this, experiencing the whole body, is breathing in like this and fully like discerning further the context of the body there, which is a necessary basis for any type of breathing in, fully or unfully, doesn't matter how, the body needs to be there. Same, like again, so you discern the body that's there on its own, seen through the context of breathing. You discern the feeling that's there on its own, seen through the context of breathing. And that's why it said the body there is one. It's the body.
Yeah.
The body among bodies, whatever the translation is. The feeling there stands for the feeling. The mind there stands for the mind, and the images stand there for the images. But you can't do that. You know, you can't do like it's Satipatthana basically. That's what Anapanasati is. And you can't do Satipatthanas. You can discern them. That's what he knows to the extent necessary for the final knowledge. He knows. No, he does.
So what about this? He trains in calming the body.
It's the same. He breathes in like this, calming body. I shall calm the body while breathing in long. I will breathe in short while calming the body.
Yeah, pasambayam. Okay. So,
What does that mean?
Means the image of calmness.
Yeah.
Calming the bodily determinations, kaya sankhara. So.
Well, calming the determination of the body.
Yeah.
Which is the body that's there.
Exactly. Yeah.
The image of the body that is there.
Whatever it is, because of which you know there's a body there. All of that.
So you can put it like this: while you're breathing in, while you know that you are breathing in long, while you know you're breathing in short, there is an image of the body implied in it, in that experience as a whole. There is an implicit image of the body. Discerning that image, the way it has its, the way it's implied, not the way you implied it. The way you find it being implied, you keep discerning it further. And that's the definition of mindfulness of the body as well. Body in the body, image of the body within the body. But image of the body within the image of the body. Same. You go for the feelings.
So he recognizes the calmness, so to speak. He finds the calmness of that.
What are you talking about?
The pasambayam. So, but
he trains in discernment of the calm.
Yeah, sure. He discerns the calmness.
Yeah, because you can discern the non-calmness.
You can discern non-calmness.
So by focusing on that, build up more.
You choose to attend basically the signs of calmness, or you can choose to attend the signs of disturbance, the signs of lust, the signs of aversion. So you choose the opposite signs, the signs that are of the calm dispositions. So
it's not like you make your body calm or you slow down your breathing.
Exactly. You discern the calmness, you discern the element of calmness within that experience as a whole, and that's why it results in calmness.
Yeah, because you can recognize, if you recognize the body and the breath, you
It's
can
already
recognize the calm.
See, if
steadiness.
And you could see, like we described it beforehand as indifferent to you. What is one of the characteristics of things being indifferent? Being equanimous. Undisturbed. Calm. So dwell on the sign of this experience of breathing is indifferent to me.
Yeah.
And you are dwelling on the sign of calmness.
Or rather this body.
You are calming. Yeah. The body, the image of the body implicit in the experience of breathing in long, the image of the body implicit in the experience of breathing out short, or whichever way it is, that image is unconcerned. Yeah. You dwell on that now further.
And then so then there's one who experiences joy, pleasure.
So the pleasure of calm. You can
the pleasure of being undisturbed. Yeah. The pleasure of being free from weight of the burden of responsibility, because you're not breathing. You're just knowing what breathing is there. So it already reveals basically the nature of being free from responsibility for actions, for doing. Intentions do themselves. For an arahant. but you're striving towards it, so you want to understand how's that possible without negating my responsibility, inherent initial responsibility for it. You get to understand that as well.
And you can't know that you're breathing in without also, there being a mind there for you to
Of course,
experience.
yeah. Well, whenever there is an image,
Mm-hmm.
whenever there is a feeling, there's a mind there. Now you cannot know that you're breathing in like this while you're experiencing overall imperturbable feeling of neutral pleasure, and say, but my mind and my mood is elsewhere.
Yeah.
No, that is what your mood is. That's why it becomes your mood. That's why you become calm, undisturbed, and agreeable. And that's why the Buddha was teaching it to Sotapannas or higher, but to become arahants.
Mm-hmm.
Means it will result in full knowledge, in full understanding, not in magical revelations, in full understanding of that which they will understand fully through recollecting it.
Yeah.
Means they already know it as a principle to some extent.
Yeah. But
So mindfulness of breathing, will basically keep recollecting of the right things. It will basically maintain it, keep it enduring until the mind is completely free from the asavas.
So he's telling them to train themselves in breathing in and breathe in with a composed mind, with a liberated mind.
All the characteristics of the mind free from suffering, characteristics that they understood in the principle at least. What liberation is.
Yeah.
And
that's why they can recollect it.
And then these notions of composure and liberation as basically being these, you're then moving on to training oneself, breathing in as one who sees impermanence.
Yeah.
So these fundamental kind of images that will release.
Anicca being, again, if the image of the body that's being implicitly now, that you are subjected to it through your recollecting the context of your breathing. So you're recollecting the context of the breathing, and there is an emerging image of the body implied there. Like, can you have breathing without a body? Can you breathe in out, bring in or out, long or short, quick or slow, without the body? So the body is there, and you get to discern the image of the body in the basically breathing of the body. The characteristics of that image now that's being discerned within the context of this peripheral recollectedness of me breathing in, breathing out, breathing in like this, breathing out like that. Breathing in short, breathing out short occurring, breathing out long occurring. What are the characteristics of that body?
That I was subjected to it.
Subjected to it, indifferent to me,
Doesn't care about
unownable,
it.
which is what Anicca is.
Yeah.
Let me now maybe emphasize with my discernment the aspect of Anicca, of this which is already there, enduring on its own, through the recollecting that which was there on its own. So it results in Anicca. It will result in Anicca even if you don't think about Anicca. And when it won't result in Anicca is when you do it.
But it's
when you are doing it, when you are the one in control, when you are the one originating it, means you are acting with the assumption of owning it. That's why you are doing it. And how can you then see the unownability of it? You can't. So the only way to see Anicca of the mindfulness of breathing is to see breath there on its own and know it on its own for what it is. Thus, breathing in long, he knows I'm breathing in long. Not I choose to breathe in long and that's why I know I'm breathing in long. So whatever breath is there, you know that that's what you're breathing. Not because you want to breathe it, but because that's what you're subjected to.
Yeah. Only then will you be possible to train yourself in regards to.
And then you get to
seeing
discern all these other
yeah.
things on the level of the images, on the level of dhammas, on the level of the mind and moods, as things enduring that you are also subjected to in the same manner you are subjected to this doing of this breathing. Which is kind of another reason why breathing is a good thing to do is something everybody would regard as the most personal thing.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask why is it?
Why is the breathing the good object? That's why, because it's the most personal type of action,
Mm.
seemingly. But you realize that the most personal type of action, the most internal, the most inseparable, the most unoptional type of action, you are subjected to.
Yeah.
And it's also, that's why it's neutral. You don't need to have desire or aversion, you will be breathing. So it precedes all the other types of actions that your mind usually depends on.
And isn't it also like your bodily posture? It's something that you're always doing. It's not like.
No, but the reason why it's a good thing to like develop the context in regard to,
Yeah.
as in Sati of it,
Yeah, yeah.
is because it's neutral, yet it contains the nature of the action. It is an action, or at least that's the view. So while, like, can you breathe in long if the body is not breathing in long? Can't. So even when you say, I am breathing in long, the only reason you can assume the possession of it is because the body is doing it.
Because you notice
Yeah.
that there's something there, which is the
Yeah.
body breathing in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the same sense as we described in other talks, I don't really know the order I'm uploading them, but people will come across it. We said like the body as the representative of the only matter that you're exposed to. That's your body is your universe. And if you try to like repossess the matter, rupa, it's always step below your feet. The distance always remains the same. You cannot possibly enter the world behind these appearances, because that's another assumption based on these appearances. You're fully enclosed within this.
Entering your knowledge.
The breath is the same. Doesn't matter how slow or how controllably you're doing your breath, you are within it.
Yeah.
It's not
The
within
breathing,
you.
The breathing, yeah,
Yeah.
you are within the breathing. There's always
Because
this.
you're within the body.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's why the Buddha taught it instead of in another mindfulness of death.
I go. It's the same wording, by the way. It's the same wording for the bodily postures. It's exactly the same. So sitting down.
Yeah,
one
you're within it.
understands. I'm sitting down.
Yeah.
Breathing in. He understands. I'm breathing in.
Yeah, sure. It's Satipatthana.
Yeah.
It's the
It's
foundations
something
of
you are always gonna
recollectedness.
be within,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But in another sutta, when we done the mindfulness, the breathing towards death, it was when monks were practicing Maranasati, and then
Your suba.
yeah, he got a bit edgy,
Yeah.
Subha and so on. So they were committing suicide and so on. So then the Buddha, instead of that,
Yeah.
but for the same result, practiced the breathing.
Practice the breathing. You won't jump off cliffs then.
Yeah, but it's still he's going to develop the same mindfulness of the same death,
Yeah.
being the same container you cannot step outside of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Usually you don't notice your breath. You might discern that your body is your container, your senses are your container, the world is a container, my possessions are my container, and so on, depending how undeveloped your mind is. But fundamentally, the most immediate container is the image of the body of breathing in, breathing out.
Mm.
And that's much closer to everything else you do while you are breathing.
Yeah.
So there is really no closer to that. Well, mindfulness of death is closer to that. Like utter removal of anything, any necessary basis for your experience as a whole. That's why it can result quickly in full uprooting of this passion, or it can tip you over a bit too quickly. So not as close as mindfulness of death, but there is nothing closer except that. To the point of view developing in terms
I
of
mean, you can't imagine.
where you are enclosed within.
Can you imagine being outside? of it?
Now, can you imagine do anything without
not breathing?
breathing body? Like even if like there is, you're holding your breathing,
Yeah.
it's
That's
only
still
done on
yeah.
account of the breathing body, now delaying the breathing of the breathing body. Like how can
And-
you be holding it if it's not there?
And basically, the intention to breathe is still there. You can't.
Of course,
You can't get a step outside
yeah,
of
the
that.
possibility of breath is
Yeah.
still there.
Yeah.
The action of breathing is still there.
Because what about the heart? The beating of the heart. I beat in
Yeah.
quick. I beat
Yeah.
in slow. There's
No,
slow
see,
beat.
you can contemplate that, but that would be more on the level of Maran and Sati.
Yeah.
And that's why you could see how you could just fill somebody with anxiety. If you recognize that literally, if you do see a connection, how your entire life of
You
joys,
just that beat.
how your entire life of joys and miseries, of everything, things that are important, your value, possessions, everything literally depends on this random beat that you have you can't even conceive controlling. You can conceive controlling breath, which is why it's a good converging point to undo that conceiving. This will just cut through your conceivings, and if the mind is strong enough, that cutting through would result in full dispassion and arahantship. If the mind is not strong enough, well, that cutting through might cut you, as it did to a certain number of monks when they were jumping off the cliffs and whatnot. They couldn't handle it. But breathing, there is an assumption of my involvement with it. So it's not I'm just so randomly subjected to in utter lack of control.
But that any sense of control you have over your breathing is undercut by...
is within the breathing that you are subjected to, so that you realize my sense of control is basically cannot become primordial, cannot take the possession of its necessary basis for my control.
Even something as basic as breathing.
But it's a neutral.
It's
a neutral action. So it will not result necessarily in destroying this, disgusting. It's just breathing. It's like, I'm fully enclosed within this, just breathing. I cannot step outside of this breathing. So if you stop maintaining the assumption of ownership, of stepping outside, as we discussed there before, the assumption of external in regard to this breathing, what is then to be said about all the other even more proliferated assumptions? They will be abandoned. So you think your body is here, that's why you're breathing. And your notion of body is here because your breathing is there. So when you choose to act on account of your body, that's even further down the line. You're subjected to breathing, that's why you know the body.
That's why I know the body.
Yeah. That's why you can relate to the body, that's why you can possess the body, that's why you can chase the sense objects to the body, for the body, and so on.
Or you could say you're sitting down, that's why you know it's the body. Could you not say that as well?
Yes, but now you're talking about a different...
I know, but just it's not the only way you can know the body.
No, we're talking about mindfulness of breathing. Yeah. You can know the body through the postures that the body has been subjected to. You can know the body through contemplating death of the body. That's why these things are contemplations. That's why Sati, recollectedness, results in full understanding, in wisdom, in discernment, whatever you want to call it. You see directly, if you keep recollecting it, you become more familiar with it. More familiar with it, the more signs and tokens and features of it become discerned, the more it gets established.
But when you're doing a technique, of breathing technique, which there are many out there, to calm your body, to give you energy or whatever. You have fear, so you breathe in, you don't breathe, you're breathing deep, you're breathing shallow, whatever, to manage a certain experience you're having that you don't want to be. Fear, anger, excitement, you want to be calm. So those things they work, but that is not, you don't have the knowledge of what anicca is. So if you don't,
so they don't work.
So
you have to define what working is. You can't say, it helps me, thus it works.
It's a management for...
Working means it frees you from suffering, frees you from need of management. Basically, if things are working, they will make you unable to be affected by issues in the first place. Not just they will perfectly manage the issues. So if things are not working on that level, then things are not working. So if your working is on the level of management, you shouldn't call it the same working as the level of uprooting that which I'm managing now. Because if you're not affected in the first place, there is nothing for you to manage. But it's often that's kept intentionally, that blur between, it maybe doesn't work to be a Sotapanna, but it still works. Well, how do you know unless you're a Sotapanna? So then it doesn't work. But yes, so the management, when it's used as management, it can help manage the pain, but that's or manage the difficult, manage the issues. But all of those things are secondary to the fact that the issue is there first.
That's the thing, the word manage already implies something's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So you manage, you require a problem in order to manage it. But the Dhamma doesn't manage the problems, the Dhamma uproots them. So mindfulness of breathing, the Buddha said, if you have the right view, will result in arahantship if you cultivate it and make much of it. means it's about uprooting, not about perfect management. It's about making you unable to be affected by that which you used to have to manage.
Freedom from management.
Yeah, freedom from burden. That's a form of burden. Having to do something on account of what you felt, on account of what touched you, what contacted you. You have to do it. You can't help but doing it. Your burden, pressure. You're free from all of that. So that's what I mean. If you're doing it as a technique, it cannot result in the right context, because your current context of doing it as a technique is the context of management. Why? Why do you want to do meditation of breathing? Because you're bothered by something, or because you want something that you don't have, which is what bothers you. So that's your context. Are you fully understanding and discerning that context through you watching your nostrils? Not at all. You're just hoping that watching your nostrils will result in fulfilling your wishes. Hence you meditate with sensuality, as the Buddha said. Because, by the way, you can't, not being aware of the context doesn't mean the context is not there. Just means you're unaware of it. Means you're ignoring it.
Like we said.
Hence avijja, the ignorance, the utmost thing you can do.
It's indifferent to
nature. It's indifferent to you, yeah. So what is the context of you needing a meditation method? A direct set of precise instruction, what to do, what to observe. What is the context of that experience? Desire, rooted in what, in how you feel. Are you understanding these things? Why? No, you can't. It's mutually exclusive. You'll either start looking at the context, and by doing so become familiar with it, allow it to endure, recollect it. Recollect your desire to be free from suffering, not when you go and sit to watch your nostrils, but when you want to go out with your friends and drink or break precepts or whatever else. Or as a monk you want to distract yourself with work or society or group or other monks, socializing or whatever else. Recollect that context and you won't do these things. That's what mindfulness is. Not like sitting and breathing in and out. And that's why mindfulness of breathing results in mindfulness being developed on the or for reference points. Satipatthana. Nothing else. He said, this Anapanasati fully developed only results in developing of the four foundations of mindfulness, which results in the four right strivings, which then results in development of the 7 enlightenment factors, which basically makes you free from all passion and become an arahant. So if you still have a need to focus on the tip of your nose when you're breathing, look at the context why. And that's what your mindfulness is. It's not you looking at the breath, it's you having a certain context making you do that. That's why you can't just do pure mindfulness either.
The context is effortless.
Yeah, discerning the context, that's always effortless, because that's always there on its own. What you do on account of the context, that's not effortless. That's something you can be burdened by or freed from. I must do this when it's this, or I don't have to do anything. And the Buddha said many times, you can't overdo mindfulness. But if mindfulness is focusing practice,
you can overdo that.
Can you really not overdo that? Yeah, you can very much overdo it, which means it's completely not that. And again, why are you focusing? Why are you focusing on the touching points
and if you got it right
of your body on the chair? Why are you focusing on the nostrils? Why?
Yeah.
Why would I be doing that? Finding out why is discerning the context that's making you do it. It's discerning the mindfulness. It's recollecting that because of which you are acting in this manner. Becoming aware of your responsibility, your action and everything else. Not relying on the magical kind of results that will come out of this like mindless performance of these methods and techniques.
Because you perform a method, do it, and then build method. You're doing it 1, 2 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, but then something comes up in your life, and the experience, the joy that you feel.
It's that's what I mean. Like, you can't do the method without the context that makes you do it, and that context is where your view is. And in that case, it will be the view of expecting results as at the end of this performance of this set of emotions.
Building up the mindfulness, building up.
And there will be a magic combination.
If you've understood the context, you can't lose it.
Well, not just that. It's basically the fact that you're implying that you can build up this focusing practice that will result in this energy release, means your view is of a nature that puts the value of things that happen to you as a result of this, what you do. Which means your practice then, results of your practice, they can come or not. You don't know for sure. You don't know how much. Means there is no direct knowledge between this is what's done and this is the result of this passion between it. You don't see that. Which means there is no knowledge between suffering and what do I do to be free from it. It's just I'm subject to suffering and I'm doing these things. To what extent, how, when, I don't know. I just have faith that doing this will free me from this. Yet the beginning of the right doing of the Sotapanna is knowing exactly what you're supposed to do, how much, and what it will result in. In other words, he knows the way out of suffering. He's not just hoping for it through like performing sets of duties and virtues and observances and techniques and methods. That's the difference. So that is the context of if you're practicing your meditation with these expectations, that is your context. You expect it will happen to you, which means you don't know how you are supposed to develop it.
That whole knowledge doesn't have to be to have that knowledge again. You don't have to build up time through focusing meditation. You do 1 hour of meditation, 2 hours meditation, you build up that knowledge again that you had when you did that 2-week retreat, when you were 10 hours a day. But that if you have the knowledge, it's always there. You can't not lose it. You can't. You don't have to figure it out all again.
Yeah, that's the definition of the knowledge. Yeah.
You don't. If you have
and you wouldn't have developed the knowledge by doing your technique for 3 hours, because as I said again, the point of it is taking you away from the context, putting the emphasis of it will happen to me, whatever I'm hoping for. Not like I will develop it.
If you think you have to build up your understanding again, it means you didn't understand anything.
If you have to figure it out, it means you don't.
Because you figured it out before.
Yeah.
Well, if you have to figure it out, genuinely figure it out, that's fine. That's just how you're basically making effort to contemplate and overcome the doubt. So, as long as we're not confusing the actual trying to understand for watching your nostrils, that's not even remotely close to that. But yes, somebody who doesn't have fully confirmed confidence in his own knowledge, knowing right is right, wrong is wrong, will have to keep going back and doing it and doing it and doing it. And when I say doing it, I mean trying to re-clarify it. Do I understand this? How do I regard this? Passion has arisen. Why is that? Why did I attend? Yeah, by all means, do all that as much as you want. Yeah, it can result in restlessness, but it's certainly resulting in developing discernment.
But once you understood that mindfulness is effortless.
Yeah. Well, that's a completely one thing. But what I'm talking about is when people would like not even make the effort to understand, but expect understanding to come out of a mechanical observation of my nostrils. Literally, belief is on that level. So it's absolutely not even a trace of conflating that with trying to understand and actually discerning that which you're becoming familiar with. Because you're not becoming familiar with anything except with the greatness of the expectation that understanding will happen to me as a result of this. But understanding doesn't happen to it, you develop it. That's why Buddha said it cannot be taken away once it's developed, because it wasn't given to you externally by any means.
And once it's developed, all you're doing is discerning something that's there on its own.
Which is why it can be developed.
Yeah. And why also it can't be taken away, because it's already there.
Of course. It's a necessary basis for things that used to be taken away. even they were within that.
You're not creating a context to your practice.
Exactly, yeah. You're undoing the wrong context, which is, as I said, there always has to be some context. So it's either wrong context or it's closer to the right context. So by becoming aware of the context, even as Buddhist, context of responsibility, context of the lack of knowledge, context of being subjected to suffering all the time, even when I don't necessarily suffer, I'm still of the nature to suffer, I'm prey to suffering. Let that context dwell in your mind and see how unwholesome or careless you'll get in the world. You won't, because you will be on edge always, because you're always responsible. And then, as the Buddha said, the noble search would be a natural result of it. I need to do, like, this is the utmost, this is the only thing worth doing something about this, what I'm subject to. And then you get to learn more, as in then you're open to the, like with the, without looking for faults, you're open to the right instruction, and you will be able to hear it when you come across it. Because you have clarified, even as a Buddhist, the basis to which the right instruction applies. If you don't have that basis, you can have the Buddha like face to face, telling you wouldn't see it, you wouldn't know it, and you wouldn't understand the value of what he said, as many cases in the suttas happened. But if you have clarified the value of that context, of what you are subjected to, as a Putujana, even a second-hand account of the Buddha's teaching would be enough for you. Because you've done the work of uncluttering the mess, of ignoring. And then further you want to develop full understanding of that context is just more of the same. More of uncluttering, more of protecting what you clarified, what you recollected, letting it endure until you become sufficiently familiar to the extent necessary for the final knowledge. So how are you feeling right now? It's basically recollect what's present in during mood. Now can you recollect how long has that mood been enduring even before you recollected it? You can, because recollection within recollection is again within the same recollection. And if that thing were not enduring on its own, you wouldn't be able to remember it, how long it was there before. So recollect that you are still subject to suffering. And now when you sit, stand, walk, talk, eat, drink, sleep, whatever else, keep that context in your mind. I am subject to suffering while I'm doing these things. Now that's something like the Sati is opposite of focusing. You can't focus on the context for your intention to focus. Trying to focus on the basis of your focusing is like literally trying to see your eye with its own eye. And you can see the harder than you're trying to focus, the less you see.
Yeah. And you might confuse that for some mystical experience.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand with a conflated context and so on. But we spoke about it before. You mentioned it as well. Like when you come first and you like live in the forest, the jungle, snakes and so on. Until you're used to it, you're just like looking at everything because you still don't have the context. You don't have you have the context of the danger, but that needs to be clarified now. It's not specific, so you don't really know what to look for, what is dangerous, what isn't. So okay, you know snakes are dangerous, but like even that, you think all the snakes are dangerous, and there are actually very few that are, and they are rarely seen. But initially, any snake means the same danger, so you end up going and like wary of everything because that's your context. But then the more you dwell in that context, and by the way, you don't need the snakes to focus on them for the context of the danger of the snakes. Quite the opposite. The danger is when you don't see it. When you see it, it's 10 meters away. It's not danger. It's by not seeing it, by not being able to focus on it, that's where the context is discerned. And once you become familiar with it, it becomes normal. So you're not necessarily even feeling the same weight or the same like mood in regard to that context, because it became the norm. You've been doing it, you go used to it. But it doesn't mean it's not there. Because as we were joking before, like you step and like a blade of grass sort of touches your ankle with an unusual angle, and immediately your mind is on full. Like you don't think, oh, I was touched, I must focus on my foot now, I must retract my foot. As soon as it touches you, your foot is away from it. And then you look and find out what it was, because the context of the danger is still there and remains enduring there all this time.
The significance of the touch is already
within, seen against the backdrop of the right context. Context that is important to you, that is significant to you, such as protect my life. So, if you do the mindfulness, if you do recollectedness correctly, even your focusing will be effortless. I focus on what is that. It's effortless. It won't require effort. It will come naturally as a result of the rightly established context.
Yeah, it trickles down.
Exactly.
It's like,
exactly, yeah.
This is what we're doing, guys,
Yeah.
and then everyone starts doing their job.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it.
And you can't reverse engineer it by hoping to focus somehow. The context will be
things.
will kind of miraculously emerge. That would be true if there is no if there is no context at certain times. So if you could be acting without a context, then you could discern the context within your particular acts.
Mm-hmm.
But there is always a context. So you acting without a specific context is your context while you're acting in that manner. That's where the only way to start discerning the context is to start looking at the context, even if it's, oh, I'm aimless, ignoring things, not wanting to think, all these things are part of your context. So then discerning the right context is not figuring it out, like creating it rightly, it's just undoing everything that obscures it, literally. So it's the opposite way of the way you're focusing and your method would take you. It's the way of uncluttering the context of the clutter that made me do the focusing.
Uncovering.
Yeah. Uncovering, yeah. But not through that which resulted, not through that which is the result of the context of this is covered, I need to uncover it. That's what I mean, like ask yourself why. Whatever practice you're doing, ask yourself why. That's where the context is. And then you can certainly step closer to see whether what you're doing is actually resulting out of the context, or trying to manage it, or is it actually really aiming to improve the context. And there's no method that can teach you how to stop ignoring the context. Only stop ignoring it.
Yeah.
Well, the closer to the method that can teach you how to stop ignoring it is the precepts. They will not necessarily teach you how to stop ignoring the context, but it will start you emulating the non-wrong context, behavior of the non-wrong context. That's why sense restraint, celibacy, and so on are necessary.